Project Tribute Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our nation's first responders. Our vision and mission is to enhance the life-saving capabilities of our first responders through raising awareness and funding for the life-saving work that they do. Our goal with the podcast is to be an educational avenue and a method for our heroes to express themselves. In the podcast, we will discuss various tough subjects. Some of the subjects may be uncomfortable or controversial. Our guests have the right to share their thoughts and ideas, and for our listeners to hear the unedited words of our guests. The Foundation's role is to showcase a diverse array of thoughts and opinions within the first responder community. If you hear something that you do not agree with, please consider reaching out to us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com and join our podcast. If you're a first responder and you would like to share your story, we truly would love to hear from you and learn from your experiences. Please enjoy this week's show, and as always, like, comment, and share to help us grow. You can find more information at www.projecttribute.com. Thanks, and have a great one. All righty. Well, good evening, everybody. So, Jared and John, we're back, and it's been a while since Jared and I have been able to connect. We've been transitioning to our new office. I'm in kind of what is going to become our new podcast room, and it's I've got tubs and tables and chairs that I'm all connected to. So sorry that it's so bland in the background, and then Jared is home. Jared actually worked yesterday with his new job. I'd kind of like to start there, man. So, if people don't know what you're doing, if you'll remind everybody, and, how's it going? How's the new job going?
Sure. So, if you guys haven't watched any of the podcasts before, I have been a firefighter, EMT, and paramedic for almost 15 years now. And then up until about just a month ago, pretty much, I was working on an ambulance. I've worked on, fire trucks, ambulances before. And now I'm a flight paramedic on a helicopter service here. It's actually a huge company. So we've got I think we got 17 bases in Oklahoma, and then we're in 19 different states, I believe. So there's a lot of stuff around. But yeah, no, man, I love it. I mean, it's just being a paramedic, I love, but this has kind of been a dream of mine since I first saw an EMS helicopter when I first started, and didn't really plan it out this way, but it worked out, and I love what I do. So yeah, it's been good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's just a couple months ago, you invited me over to watch the helicopter land, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I get to see a helicopter land, and now you're inside of the helicopter, and so the one thing I was surprised about. So we had the leadership Bartlesville, and your wife Laura coordinated all that, but it was really cool. I didn't realize that you could get memberships for the air evac. And the thing that really surprised me was the whole, if you're traveling internationally, it was a couple $100. I don't remember what it was, but it was basically all expenses to get you back from wherever you're traveling to the United States, to a hospital facility. It's one of those things where you spend a couple $100 a year for the membership versus that one time you need it, you're going to drop $30,000.
Right.
It made sense to me.
Yeah, so Bartlesville Ambulance, they have a membership program as well. So, it makes sense on both sides because it's a revenue for the company. And then, so I'll just start with here in town on the ambulance. You buy a membership. I think it's like, I don't know, $60, $70 a year. And they basically cover what Medicare doesn't cover. So, and it's not, I can't say that 100% of the time because that's not the case, but it's basically the same thing with the air evac because you buy a membership, and even just me being an employee, I get it paid for by the company, but I could be flown to a different hospital here in the country, but yeah, there's plans that you can get. Let's say you're going to, I don't know, Africa or whatever.
Right.
And you might have some medical, you might be a diabetic. There could be all sorts of stuff. You could be doing some stuff that's, skydiving, whatever. Well, if you were to have to be flown from another country back into the U.S., you're talking six figures easy.
Oh yeah. It's a chartered jet. Correct. Helicopters not going over the Atlantic.
Right. But for a couple $100 for a week or two. I mean, even if you don't use it, I think it kind of pays for itself just in case. I mean, it brings your family back with you, and it takes care of a lot of different things. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
No, I mean, I'm happy because I didn't even realize that was a thing. It's kind of like if you live out in the country, paying the memberships for the fire departments, and you always hear the people that didn't pay the memberships and their house burned down, so then they're mad. And it's like, well, this is why.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, ever since I heard, who's the gentleman, the rep that came and spoke with us?
Oh, you would put me on the spot.
As one of either you or Laura said, you should know these things.
I should. I'm horrible with names, man.
Me too, man.
I
want to say Steven, but that's not right.
No, that's Laura's boss. I want to say Justin, maybe.
That sounds. I've got his business card sitting up. So, but anyway, it was just nice having him come and talk about all the services, and I just, it's one of those things you don't think about. Wow, I probably should look into that and be a functioning adult, but it made sense. So, well, we've had we've done a lot since last time you and I got together. We've had several pretty interesting podcasts. The Tulsa Women on Fire, that one was incredible. I really appreciated talking with the sergeant from the Tulsa PD, and then you and Brett Mickelon had a 2-part one. There was so much to unwrap in you and Brett. It was just fun to watch. It was fun to listen and just put in the background, and especially just from the civilian side. I listened to both parts probably 3 times each, and every single time there was more that came out of it, or those little subtle, kind of like talking about the McGirt ruling and other things within just the mental health side of it. Or Brett talked about he misses the brotherhood, but didn't dive into the culture of the military where you eat, sleep, and breathe it. He stayed just enough separate out of it. There was a lot to go back on really with all of them. So when you listen to either the Tulsa mental health or the Women on Fire, was there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you were like, wow, I didn't think about that?
I mean, I guess I'll start with I have his name, by the way. It's Chris Seaman.
Chris, there you go. Okay.
We were way off.
Yeah, we suck.
I'll start with the Tulsa Women on Fire. I was not really stuff that I wasn't aware of or anything, but just the passion that they have and what they do with all the time and effort they put in together with the different foundations they're a part of. And I guess we can, I can't remember the name of the,
so the Tulsa Women on Fire, the money that they generate goes to a program called Hydrants of Hope. And Hydrants of Hope, the funding goes towards families that are coping with childhood cancer. And so it's anything from the hospital bills to the travel to so Hydrants of Hope is, I think it's primarily Tulsa based, just because it's Tulsa PD, or not Tulsa PD, Tulsa FD. But yeah, they have their own website, and I think they have a Facebook page as well. But it seemed to be a pretty well-rounded organization focused around childhood cancer.
Yeah, and I mean, I've worked with a lot of different women firefighters, and have never really seen. Of course, I'm not a woman, so I can't say anything from that perspective. But it was interesting to hear their perspectives on what being a woman in the fire service entails. And more of it was from the public. It wasn't from the people they work with. It wasn't from supervisors or coworkers. It was, the spouses of the guys they worked with. It was the general public asking them hey, can you perform this job? I mean, there's so much testing that's involved with anything first responder. I mean, if you're not going to get hired, if you can't do every position that you need to do. I mean, as a firefighter, unless you're in New York, I mean, they have guys that are called, engine guys. They've got trucky guys. They've got rescue guys, and there's specific jobs for those guys on that truck. Well, most departments, especially if it's a volunteer, Tulsa's the same way. But you're you're very good at a lot of different things. You're not an expert at one thing because the staffing just isn't there. I mean, we don't have the number of people that it would take to have a whole truck that all they do is rescue stuff. And then, engine company, they've got specific duties. Ladder companies, that's what they do, is they put ladders up against them, and they don't touch the fire hose. I mean, that's for the other guys. And so it's weird that the public would ask them, just because they're a woman, if they can do the job. So they wouldn't be there if they couldn't.
And it was the assumption that they're just there to cook in the firehouse. I mean, it was just baffling because when we talked with the Bartlesville PD, Maggie and all them, and I kind of, they were a little bit more tight-lipped, and I want to circle back with them and ask, okay, have those, now that we've talked with them and they shared, has that happened to you all? I'm not sure if it has or it hasn't, but it was just, I can't imagine in today's age that, and all of their examples were women going up to the women firefighters saying,
yeah,
you're allowed to drive this? I thought you were allowed to cook. And, and then, one of them joked like, you don't want me cooking. And I'm, so it's, that was surprising. To me, it was surprising, talking with, Cleveland and Hominy Fire, about, the want or the attempt to be on the Tulsa Fire Department. And they didn't, like, one of them, I forgot if it was Chief Sarid or which of them said that I didn't pass the test to become a Tulsa firefighter. And so then you look at all the folks around us that we've talked with that I tried to get on and I couldn't. And then you're speaking with these women and they did. And it's like, I mean, just to be there, they've earned their place. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It is. And I've got to give a shout out to one of the greatest people I've met. She was one of the first people that I met when I went to Lawrence to do my testing to get hired on there. Eve Tolfree is her name. She is retired now. She was one of the first women on the department, and she was actually a Black woman as well. Ended up being our EMS training chief before she retired, and she was one of the smartest people I know. And she did every job. I mean, she was there for a long time, so she did every job. I mean, started out at the bottom, and when you start as a firefighter, and it doesn't matter if some places do what they call a lateral transfer. So if you're like a lieutenant, it's very military based. So they've got, captains, lieutenants, officers of that kind. In some circumstances, they'll move you over to a different department if you apply for a specific position. But if you hire on as a firefighter, paramedic, you start at the bottom. So I've started at the bottom and worked my way up 3 times now on fire departments.
Right.
And I mean, you clean the bathrooms. You are the first one up in the morning to make coffee. You're the last one to go to bed, make sure everything's, lights are off, everything's picked up, dishes are done. And you do every job to work your way up. And that's for a reason. I mean, that's to get respect and to appreciate what you do. But I'm sure they all did the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, Black, white, doesn't matter. I mean, the job is still the same regardless of who and what you are. So.
Well, and I think that, to me, that's one of the things that you recognize. I think I'm seeing it more than I realized on just the expectations of do what you say you're going to do, as well as how we communicate. Like, I'm not a first responder, but I think because I grew up around quite a few, but also the restaurant industry, which that's where I grew up. It's, you don't have time to have a conversation. It's give me this. And so there's a much more directness. And I think that that's why you and I get along really well. And then, Sierra, she's here folding shirts, and same thing. Like, we can have a very direct, here's what I need. And there's not it's just a different way to communicate. And so then it makes it where when it's hard to recognize, hey, I talk differently, or I talk much more direct. And so then I mean, I've hurt a lot of people's feelings, even just this week, just through that, I don't know, that it's just the set of expectations of, we're going to take care of this place. We're going to, set expectations and stand to those expectations. I don't know. Is that something that you've kind of noticed in yourself on just that overall culture, because of going from the bottom up several times? I mean, has that impacted you, do you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it definitely teaches you to be humble, to have respect for that job. But I would say that, like in your case, you would make a good first responder. You'd have to get rid of the beard, but I don't know that you could do that.
Nope.
But it's one of those cultures that type of communication is expected. Like we can't sit around and go back and forth on certain things, because typically if we get called, it's an emergency of some sort. It's a fire, it's a medical call, it's whatever, water rescue. We have to have clear, direct communication, and so that then bleeds over into just our regular conversations. We don't beat around the bush unless it's a topic that we need to kind of feel our way through. But for the most part, I mean, and you'll learn pretty quick. I mean, it's there are people that get hired on that have, so what's a good way to put this? We'll say soft feelings.
Yeah.
And they get butthurt really fast. And it's not that person doesn't like them or that, they don't appreciate them. It's just they're being direct. They're not going to beat around the bush. They're going to tell you how it is. They're going to tell you exactly what you need to know to have a long, healthy career. And that, I mean, it does bleed over into this conversation, but that goes into the dark humor, and we can talk about all that stuff too. But
right.
It's different when you bring that into your profession, because it's hard to say this in a way that doesn't sound weird, but being a first responder is a lifestyle, right? Most people that are outside of that lifestyle don't understand a lot of that kind of stuff, which is why we do the podcast to help people understand. But like for your coworkers and the people that you work with don't have the same base of communication that I've grown up with in the fire and EMS service. So right. It's difficult. You got to tread lightly to make sure you don't hurt people's feelings, and even though you want to be direct, but yeah.
I mean, it's an odd one that we spend time talking about. We need to do better about how we communicate on sharing your emotions and feelings, but then it's also, there's that directness. I mean, you and I just the other day, hey man, if I'm fucking up, I need you to tell me. If you think I've done wrong, I expect you to tell me, hey John, you need to correct yourself this way or that way. And it's also the transparency of, this is kind of what's transpired. Do you this is my version of the story. Do you see that I've screwed up, or how I could have done it better? And then the challenge of, help me be better. And
right. Well, I'm not saying that you treat it, the same way like we do in the fire service every conversation. I mean, you have to adjust your conversations accordingly, but if you need to get your point across, it's not that you're trying to hurt their feelings. It's just, you're a very direct person. You want to make it very clear where you stand, and that way there's no misunderstanding. I mean, that's the way I look at it, is that if the more direct you are, and I'm not saying say it in a way that's rude or inappropriate, but I don't know. I think the culture of communication has changed a little bit in the past few years, and the way people interpret how you speak to them is way different than it used to be. And the way it used to be is how it is in first responder communication, just because we have to, and we can't, things can be misinterpreted, and that can be a life or death ordeal. If we say the wrong thing or they misinterpret what we said, if it, like a scenario like we're on the radio and I'm trying to communicate that, if I'm an engineer on the truck and they don't hear me correctly, and I say the water's not on yet, and they take off running inside and run out of water in a 3,000-4,000 degree environment, that's a life or death situation. So we have to be clear in those kind of things, and that just, like I said, kind of bleeds over into our regular conversation.
And I think that the other side that we miss is the circle back. People lack the ability to be told, hey, that's not right, or hey, I need follow-up information. I mean, I had an email just the other day where it's the same thing. Like, they gave me just kind of a very vague, there's a problem. And so I said, I need more detail. And it was, well, I was just trying to let you know. It's like, yes, but I still need to know the detail. It's in the restaurant industry, it's teaching the server, hey, they said the food's bad. Stop. What's bad? Is it salty, too spicy, too hot, cold? Use your words, because I can't fix bad. I can fix it's too salty or whatever, for the next guest, but I can't fix bad. Like you just didn't like it. Okay, why? What can I do to make this better? And I think that in communication, we as a society have lost that ability to circle back and say, hey, we had a disconnect. I want to understand this and I want to learn from it so that we can be better. And I think that that's what you and I have had more conversations around, just that opening up and the mental health side of it, from speaking and hey, you're struggling with this, you need to talk about it. Same thing. Hey, we had a struggle, in our communication. We need to talk about it. We needed to circle back. And that's hard to do nowadays. That's really hard to do.
Well,
Really.
and in my line of work, I mean, it's we see it in multiple different areas. So just in our regular, we'll say our radio communication, whether we're talking to dispatch, whether we're talking to a different unit, we'll say something on the radio, we identify ourselves, say what we have to say, and then they come back and they repeat exactly what we said, so that way we know they heard us correctly and everybody understands, because visually we can't see them a lot of the time, so communication is huge. And then on a different aspect of it, if there's ever an issue, we always come back and talk about it. I mean, even if there's not an issue, we just come back and say, hey, how do you guys think that went? Everybody's, it went great, love it. Or, we could have done this better, we could have done this better. And it's not to offend anybody. It's just that we can be better. We can always be better. We can always learn. We can always improve. And that discussion usually leads to some sort of training that can make us better at that situation or whatever. But kind of like you're saying, people have lost that ability to respectfully come back and learn from a situation and not get upset about it. And then that just drags out into other issues. And then there's all those emotions that come in afterwards. If they don't deal with that, it's basically the same thing on a different wavelength. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's, you and I kind of had a good discussion around just culture. And as we continue to grow the foundation, it's just having that expectation of, if you say you're going to own it, and for whatever reason you can't, that's fine. Just circle back and say, hey, I can't. Here's when I can. I don't even need to know the why. And sometimes it's just, man, like today you and I were just to get to the podcast. You and I had several struggles, and it was, man, my day was planned on this, and then my day went to shit. And so then we just communicated and said, cool, no worries, do it in this time. Yeah. I mean, I've got tubs and all sorts of crap keeping this thing together. And it's okay. And it's because you were able to say, hey, man, I'm struggling. And so then I'm able to offer, well, we can do this at another day if you need. But we lack in general the ability, not we, you and I, just people, to say I'm struggling. And so then, since you were able to communicate that to me, I was able to say, cool, let's, what do you need from me? How can I help? And I think that's what I want out of, as we continue to grow and we continue to add people, it's making sure at all times we allow everybody the ability to say, man, I'm sorry that I didn't respond. I'll do better. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging, the impact, and thank you for saying, here's what we're going to do to be better next time. So,
well, and it's difficult to do because a lot of the people that, have those issues have been practicing up to that point exactly what we're talking about. So it's not no fault of their own. That's just how they've either grown up or the people that they're around or whatever. So we're having to kind of, I don't want to say change people, but better their communication skills.
Well, I think it's showing everyone, hey, it's safe. It's safe to say I didn't do it. It's perfectly safe to. I don't care if you did or not. I just don't want to be waiting for it to be done and it's not done. Don't surprise me. I think that's in my line of work. It's always don't surprise your client, and so making sure that if I am quicker to call on a hey, we screwed up, than I am to say, hey, things went well. Hey, we screwed up. This is what we're doing about it. I'm sorry. It may make the news.
Well, and I think people have a difficult time with even talking about it because, I don't want to get too deep into it, but the world is very judgmental. I mean, with Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, all these things, all you see are the best things and the best or worst. We see the worst things, whatever, but Um, we judge people based on what we see on social media, and so that communication has been withdrawn just because of that in general. And so I think that has bled over into just daily communication, even between friends. They feel like if they say this, they're going to get judged for it. They're going to think of them differently. And then even continuing on into the mental health side of being a first responder, for the longest time, and some people still are, if that culture hasn't changed yet in the department, but they're afraid to speak out and say anything because they're going to be judged, as if they can't perform their job, as if they're, going to lose their job because of some reason. I mean, it's a slippery slope, but, I would like to think that we've had a pretty good environment of, a non-judgment area, just kind of open communication and talking stuff through. So,
well, and that was the one comment that stood out to me with the Tulsa Women on Fire. And you and Brett almost said it, like it was on the tip of your tongue, that you, like one of the young ladies, I think it was Jamie, that she said she doesn't want to tell you her worst call because she doesn't want you to see her differently. And I thought that was fascinating. Of, if I tell you that I've handled this, you're going to all of a sudden look at me, and you see that in the military folks as well. Of, I don't want you to see me as a killer. I just want to be me. I don't want to see you to see me as, that person that handled the case with the child getting eaten by a dog. I just want you to see me. And so I thought that was a very interesting perspective of, I don't want to change how you are looking at me at this moment by telling you that. I would have never, that of all the comments, that one stood out to me.
Yeah, and I've done that a little bit, I guess, unintentionally with Laura. I mean, there's some stories that when I first started doing this, that I saw that it was more than just this, but I didn't tell her because I don't know, kind of the same deal. I probably didn't want to talk about it because I didn't know how to deal with it at that point. But very similar to that, I didn't want her to look at me any differently and feel, I didn't want her emotions to change and like what she could share with me or whatever, right. Because I feel like, it's weird talking about our stories, especially with people that aren't first responders, because it's like, I don't want to be that guy that you tell me a story and I'm like, oh, well, my story's up here. Right. And I'm not trying to compare my stories to yours because there's no way I can do that. But that's
kind of Laura coming. Yeah, I mean, I could see that being intimidating on Laura's end. Of, she's talking to you about a bad day, and you're like, we were in an 80-mile-an-hour headwind. I mean, it's not comparable, and so that has to be intimidating on Laura's end. Of, I'd rather just not tell you about it because how could that compare to yours? I mean, it's not that has to be intimidating. Wow. Yeah, good point.
Well, and so I'll just tell you right now, Laura and I's relationship has gotten a lot better because of our communication skills. We talk about a lot of stuff differently. And then what you said kind of just affirmed this, but I don't compare my stories to hers. I don't compare her stories to mine. It's a bad day. If it's a bad day in her mind, it's a bad day. It doesn't matter, what it is. That's how she feels.
Right.
And so, yes, even though my bad day could be on a whole different level if you look at it objectively, but then subjectively, it's just how I feel. It's how she feels about her day, and it's not a comparative thing. It's what she's telling me, and I interpret that and help her deal with that, or just sit and listen if that's what she wants me to do. So,
yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting. It's kind of like just 2 weeks ago when I went to Georgia. I told you, man, I need to be around nobody for a little bit. I just kind of hit my overwhelmed, and I felt odd telling you that, and because like, man, if I'm overwhelmed and I just do food, so it makes sense. Like I unknowingly did it myself. That I told you, hey, I'm struggling right now, but I didn't go into the details or any of that stuff because me struggling and you struggling aren't the same. I mean, but
it
reality,
is.
They are, yeah.
Yes.
So,
I mean, if you don't deal with some of that stuff, you will deal with it. It might be good or bad, and you might not be aware of it at the time, but your mind will help you deal with it. And it could be a conscious decision, or it could be a decision that your mind just says, hey, this is what's going to happen. So
no, I mean, I snapped at work 2 different, one for sure, and I know that there was 2. I don't remember the other one, but I mean, I snapped, and so I went on the trip, and then I came back, and I went to both and said, "Hey, I shouldn't have said that. That was not okay of me. I apologize. I shouldn't have." I mean, but that's where I was at. I was past my breaking point of, you need to leave me alone. And so then I did the 4-day trip and just focused on serving, the Easton Lee folks. And I came back refreshed and like, okay, I'm ready. I'm good. But I didn't realize how bad I was until I came back and was like, oh shit, I need to apologize.
So I will compare just this one time to what you just said. So, you said you snapped at work for whatever reason. And I'm not saying that like I don't snap or people in the first responder world don't do that, but historically, most of the time we can't do that.
Right.
I mean, we're not allowed to because of the culture itself within our team unit. So your fire crew or EMS crew, whatever, you want to keep that dynamic good. So you hold those emotions in. I can't do it on a call because I'm not going to take my anger out on a patient. So I hold all this stuff in for 24 hours at a time. And so that's why I talked about when we first started doing this, when I first got home, it's like, what the hell do I do with all these emotions? I mean, I've held them in for that long, and that's not even including, my life outside of work, but it will come out eventually in some way, shape, or form. So,
yeah, I mean, it's just that COVID has really made everything just harder. And then people's expectations and their tolerance has just been, I mean, people have lost their fucking minds. It is incredible how hateful, like I'm watching, or right before you and I logged in, it's all these posts about the city sucks at taking care of snow. You need to take notes of how up east they do it. And so then the beauty of it, we have a city council person that he went and did the research and then post, well, actually in this place, and they are the furthest north, town in the United States. I mean, it's just funny how people are, that you have this one person being absolutely critical versus just saying like, hey, weather sucks in Oklahoma, and we're not prepared for ice. It's just, we're not. And then flip side, you have somebody willing to pick a fight and go find the exact statistical per mile, what streets and how many streets on average within that town do get cleaned at the northernmost town in the United States. It's like, Jesus Christ, people.
Well, I mean, COVID has allowed everybody to do everything they do from the seat of their computer right here. So they, my dad, and this pissed me off so much with my dad because, like, let's say I was at college or I live here and he lives in, 45 minutes away at least, we'd have any sort of disagreement, whether it be through text message, phone call, whatever. As soon as it started, he just stopped. He'd stop replying. He would hang up. He refuses to have an argument over not in person, right? Because I could then say whatever I want without the repercussions of being in person and dealing with that person. I can say what I want and hang up. I can text something, not reply. We've lost that human to human connection that keeps us accountable for the things that we say, the actions that we use, our body language, all that kind of stuff. So I think, and that just, it just exponentially gets worse when you add social media and COVID and all the stresses that people are not dealing with well, and cold weather. So people are inside more. It's rough, man. I mean, mental health is huge right now. So,
Well, and I mean, like, it's easy to think, hey, the kids are home from school, but they still have to do the virtual check-ins, which is now on the weight of not only the teachers, but then the parents. So the parents are snapping at the teachers because the parents are now looking at the lesson plan for the first time in a year. And then it's, well, this is stupid. Why'd you write this stupid plan? And it is fascinating how everything kind of happens.
Yeah.
But so
I'm good.
Okay. So wanted to do, is there any on all the podcasts, was there anything else that kind of stood out from on your end as you were listening?
I don't know. It's different for me because, a lot of the stuff I mean, it makes sense, and I might not have heard it in a while, but it all makes a lot of sense just because it's kind of what it's just the culture of being, a firefighter, or, whatever. But I really enjoyed talking to Brett. It was more of a,
Yeah.
just a conversation about stuff. And I mean, he had some stories. I wish, we had to take some of those stories out, not because he did anything wrong, but just because, it's, I don't know, it was material that
Yeah.
needed to be, fine tuned a little bit. And it's real conversation, but just didn't want to put anybody at,
Yeah, it's tough. Like on the policing side of things, you really have to think, okay, what can the worst critic do with that information? And the fire is not as political as police. Like the city council doesn't as much go and say, firefighter, why did you put the hose here versus here? They absolutely will with the police officer. Why did you park in this parking space? Why did why did the like I watched a video yesterday where two kids were brawling in the middle of a mall, and the two officers get in the middle of the kids, and all they did was they pushed both. Well, one kid gets put against a like a couch that just was naturally there. The other kid went the other direction, so one went right, one went left, and the one that went left, there was no furniture, so they go to the ground. Now, if the couch wasn't there, the other kid would have gone to the ground. But what happened was the black kid got put to the ground, the white kid got set on a couch. That's not what happened. Like both kids got tackled by police officers because they were brawling. Period. But it's, they were scrutinized to that level, and it was just like, you guys. So it is, I don't know, to your point, the policing side of it, I want to be very careful and never do something that puts them at risk in any way.
right. And it wasn't that he did anything, did or said
Nope.
anything that was wrong. It was that, with the amount of scrutiny that even just police in general get, and then us putting it out on social media, it was just one of those things that, just better left unsaid. And if you want a conversation, then talk to a police
And I
officer
think
or
just to
contact us,
answer,
whatever.
if you're listening, I mean, just to answer the question, Brett had basically just shared of a time where somebody helped him, and there wasn't anything really wrong with it, but it was definitely, man, how could somebody take that in a wrong way? And so we said it is 1% possible. So why don't we just go ahead and take it out? And we made sure Brett knew about it. I mean, it was everybody was
It was a
aware. And
great story too.
it absolutely was, and it's just somebody was being human to a police officer that needed help. But around all the circumstances, it just made sense. Hey, it's 1% questionable, so let's just pull it out. So that's what Jared and I are talking about.
But yeah, I mean, it was a cool conversation. It was, and I mean, a lot of that stuff I didn't just never thought of. I mean, I've never been a police officer, never wanted to be, but I don't know. It was cool to hear some of that stuff from his side of the fence. And I know that, a lot of that stuff is unsaid, and police and fire kind of banter a lot back and forth. And we talked about that quite a bit, but
Yep.
It was cool to hear, when PD calls us, they love it when we show up. It was a good working relationship. We kind of give each other crap, but, and we're the same way on their side. When we call them, we need them. And, we're excited when they show up, because that's not what we do. I mean, that's what they're trained to do, is those things. And so when we know that their services could be better than ours for whatever reason, we're going to call them and expect them to do that. And so we enjoy to see them. So,
yeah. It's I don't know. It's kind of funny to me though, because I've in a very short period, your career has progressed, and I've been able to witness kind of the EMS. You're teaching. One of my employees is a student that graduated. I mean, it's been fun to watch, and then to mentally, I was thinking through as an ambulance driver or EMT. Man, it's cool that we're on scene, and now when you're on scene, everybody else is like that dude.
I don't like to think of it that way, but it's everybody we've talked to is, and that's the way I thought. It's weird. I try to stay as humble as I can, and I don't try to, I mean, I'm proud of where I am. I'm proud of what I do, but it's weird kind of being that person now that,
Sure.
But I mean, I like it. I mean, I like people to be able to depend on me, and when, for a lack of a better term, shit hits the fan, I mean, they're going to call us because we can get there fast. We're trained very well. And I still have a little ways to go. I've got to take a test that I am scared to take. I've got 2 years from my first day of employment to pass this test. And I've had a few friends that have taken it multiple times and they failed every time.
Yikes.
Yeah. I'll be all right though.
I got faith in you. You'll be fine.
Yeah. It's expensive
So,
too.
We kind of were catching up on the podcast, but we've got a lot of new stuff.
Yes.
For the store. What do you think? Should we show it?
Oh yeah. Show one of the shirts first.
You want shirts first? And I was debating on this one. Sorry, I got it. It's all like janky, so that's
all good,
right? So I was debating on this one just because of current events, but this one has a cool story to it. There was an artist that we connected with, and so I had to teach him, hey, this is what American policing looks like, so the very first shirt, and this Jared actually picked the fabric out. Let's hear. It's all backwards here. So they redid the logo. It looks to me kind of like MTV, the astronaut on MTV.
Yeah, it does. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm sorry the camera didn't pick this up 100%, but this is I love this shirt.
I can see it pretty good.
Yeah.
Raise it up just a little bit.
Oh,
there you go.
Sorry.
There it is.
So we've got this shirt. Actually, Sarah's here folding these right now. So today I'll put them on the website for sale. And I bought a ton of extra large and 2X because we were thinking that this is probably more focused towards the first responder, but anybody can purchase it. But the softness of this one that you picked, man, you did good. You did really good. But it was funny
because picked a color.
You picked the shirt too, I think. Oh no, I guess I picked the shirt, didn't I? So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so this is the one where initially the police officer was holding an AK-47, and so I had to explain to him our police officers don't carry AK-47s. So it was a fun shirt to make, and then we've got several along this style that we're going to be putting out, trying to kind of do a mix. So, then this one, this came in last week, so it's just a basic, red line, blue line, supporting flag.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Yes. On the front, it's just got the standard logo, and then at the top it says Project Tribute Foundation. So I think it says it says established 2021 or 2020.
I like it.
That's yeah. So that's pretty good base level. This one's my favorite. I like this one. This one turned out really well. So, and then it's got our website on there.
Yeah, too. I've got that one.
So same thing, but these are so these two are already on the website, and a couple of them have been purchased, and then this one is going on the website today. In addition, we finally got our patches in.
Yeah.
So and then these are Velcro on the back side. That way, if you've got like one of the Velcro hats, it can go on your hat. Or, and then we're going to start when we get our medical bags put together. We'll slap these on the medical bags. So, but we've even down to Project Tribute, the coaster, the coffee mug, the challenge coin, the sweater, the sweatpants. We're starting to turn into Spaceballs, man. Spaceballs, the lunchbox, it's everything. So
I got plenty of stuff. We got pins too, right? Pins.
Oh yeah. We
coin.
Okay, so
coin.
Laura said my pins were cheap.
Well, that's
and
the whole.
Said,
not cheap.
I told her this is what your husband said he wanted, so we did it.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast with this. I mean, we're not going to spend a ton of money on some of these pins because they're going to get lost. But that's the whole point, to leave them places, not on purpose necessarily, so that people find it, look at it, and they're like, oh, what's this? And then they look it up. So, but I mean, they write well on gloves, which is what I wanted. So that's kind of what I need to do, write them on gloves, but they're.
So I need you to go tell her that
she works at a bank. So her pins are
like,
fancy pins,
Yeah, that's not your $100 NASA space pen garbage.
I say I've got fancy pins too. I've got my little fancy pin here. So
Yeah. It's a nice pin, man. I'm sorry that I couldn't buy everybody those pins. Jesus.
I don't think, we couldn't afford that.
So the foundation wise, we've got 8 requests that came in. The one that worries me the most, we had a request coming in out of Louisiana, and it's 4 firefighters, and the email says that they had all their gear stolen, and so that one's kind of the one that scares me the most, of just getting them replacement gear quickly. And I think that right now we're sitting around $20,000 of requests, mostly the tourniquets. And you all and you and I are going to meet sometime next week to finalize our first aid kits. But so it's been interesting to see that we're being noticed at other states now, and I don't quite know how, but it's I don't know. It's one of those where we're in a good place that people are seeing us and saying, hey, they're helping, and we need to ask them for help. But it's also terrifying that, man, people are asking for help. We need to get help to them. And so that's kind of our next big thing, is just to try to start completing these 2022, requests. We've got the ballistic shields out of Luther, and then several of the first aid kits, and then the full turnout. That one's going to be hard, and I'm going to need your help on that one.
Yep.
I don't.
Not
I mean, are
cheap
they?
stuff.
No, I mean they. I think the estimate was $10,000, but I bet it's higher than that. I mean, if we're going to do it, let's make sure we do it properly. But it's. I mean, I'm assuming that the
if anything, their SCBA's got taken.
That's what it says. Is all their gear was stolen.
Wow. Well, I mean, we'll talk about it. Hopefully, we can get them at least some temporary gear that's not going to cost anybody anything, because there's lots of ways to get that kind of stuff, and then eventually, hopefully, get them brand new sets of whatever. It might not be exactly what they want at the time, not the same brand or whatever, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, if you're listening and you happen to have extra gear. I've got 4 firefighters in Louisiana that are fighting fires, from what I assume, in their blue jeans. So I don't know, and it's a small company.
I mean, they're just not doing. They're not doing it. I mean, legally they can't do that. So
yeah, my assumption
is unprotected.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be probably a small farm town, something where they show up and do the best they can, and but yeah, so we definitely have a lot of needs out there. So if you're listening and you've got the ability, or know somebody that does, we can definitely use some help of funding, as well as just the items themselves. So,
well, and I'll put this out in the universe as well. But if anybody is aware of a company that wants to donate, our 2 most expensive items for those bleed kits are the tourniquets and the bags.
Yeah,
everything else is fairly cheap, and we need hundreds of all that stuff. So if anybody knows anybody that'd be willing to donate those, or work for a company that makes those, is reach out to us. And that's our biggest issue right now, is just being able to pay for all that stuff, and then have enough money to continue helping people. So
yeah, I mean, I'm going to start plugging away at grants. We've requested our DUNS number for government grants, but I mean, that's the hard thing, is it's all about money. So we'll keep plugging away. Well, it's been a pretty good recap. Is there anything else that you kind of want to touch on before we start closing it up for this week?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, since we're asking everybody for everything, not that we ever are going to run out of things to talk about, but it's, a lot of this is what we, on the podcast anyway, is not necessarily for first responders themselves, because a lot of us know a lot of the stuff that we talk about, but for the general public that listens to this kind of stuff, if there are things that you guys want to know, questions, want us to talk about, current event stuff, no, I'm not going to talk about, there's a few topics I'm not really willing to put out there, but if anybody's got, has questions or topics that they want to hear us talk about, or has somebody that would love to be on the show, talk with us, whatever.
Yep.
Reach out to us.
Yeah, I think that, I want to, once we get this podcast room set up, or just the office in general, start doing more Facebook Live events. And then if you're local to Bartlesville, Oklahoma, on March 2nd, we will be at Cooper and Mill Brewery. And then Saturday, we're going to go to Pawnee at the Mounds 5K, or I guess it's a kind of a shooting event that's on Saturday this Saturday that we're going to be at. And we'll have all of our gear at Cooper and Mill. We'll have all of our gear over at Pawnee. And then same thing, if you live here in town in Bartlesville, connect with us and we can open up the shop and you can buy some shirts or make a donation and help us help our first responders. So all of our stuff you can find at www.projecttribute.com. And then if you have questions, you can always email us or comment on the YouTube or podcast. You can't really comment, but in our email address is projecttributefoundation@gmail.com. But yeah, we definitely would love to have more content, more guests, and we'll continue to grow. So, all right, Jared, final thoughts. What you got?
I don't know. Just take care of each other. I wish that, hopefully I know it'll get there, but when this reaches more people, I hope that they really take what we say to heart. And, I'm reading a book. We didn't talk about any books, but just real quick, I'm reading a book called 7 Men and the Secrets of Their Greatness. So it talks about 7 different men. And the intro to this talks about, it kind of compares, the current state of kind of what we talked about. But it also talks about the Duke. You know who the Duke is, right?
Yeah.
And just in general, like the different shows that kids used to watch, the man of the house was the man of the house. And, he was stern, but understanding. He didn't, he was just steady. And you saw all these different father figures in all these shows. And now even just looking at some of the shows, it's completely different. I mean, and it reflects the family dynamic that's changed.
Right.
But just be good people, be good to your family, be good to your friends, to your community. I mean, and we've talked about just thanking first responders before, but just thanking somebody or doing a nice favor for people, opening a door, for somebody is a big deal, which it shouldn't be. I mean, that should be just a natural thing that you do, but I don't know. If you go through a drive-through, buy the person behind you, buy their food or whatever. So do something nice for everybody every day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that on my end, just because food service, I agree. I mean, I challenge, if you're listening to this, I don't know, maybe that's the thing that you need to have a better day. Maybe it's just, man, I'm gonna leave this waitress or waiter a good sized tip to help. Maybe they've got $100 gas bill that they can't cover. But yeah, I mean, everyone needs a little bit of a bump, especially now more than ever. So yeah, absolutely. If you are listening, I challenge you, and Jared challenges you to do an act of kindness for the week. So with that, I think next week, let's try to talk through a book or two, and then
Cool.
We'll see what else we can get going. If you guys are still listening, thank you for hanging in with us. And then every Friday, these will air. We post them at 7 p.m. and then it goes through like Apple Podcasts and all stuff. And you might notice on Apple Podcasts, it hits at like 7:17, and it's because it takes time to upload the automatic upload, and then it goes to like Spotify and all those other things. Someday we hope to be at the size of Joe Rogan, but not yet. But we'll keep trying and keep growing, and we could definitely use some help. So go to your act of kindness. Thank you for listening. And with that, Mr. Jared, I'm going to go ahead and close it out.
All right, buddy.
All right. See you later, man.
See ya.
This podcast is hosted by the Project Tribute Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our first responders. Thank you for listening. For more information on our efforts, check us out at www.projecttribute.com. If you're a first responder that would like to share your story, contact us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com. You can find us on various social media and podcast sites by searching the Project Tribute Foundation. 100% of donations are used to save lives, while our retail store pays for any of our operational costs. Thank you again, and please be sure to like us, follow us, and share our foundation with your friends. Thank you, and have a great day.